You know what they say about bureaucracy? It's the same whether you're dealing with parking tickets or governing an entire galaxy. Take Administrator Klepp, for instance. Guy runs the Galactic Council's xenobiology department like he's personally responsible for preventing the heat death of the universe. Every decision gets triple-checked, quadruple-filed, and stamped with enough official seals to choke a Regellian space whale. Which is exactly why Junior Researcher Pip was going slowly insane. Another thrilling day of cataloging space moss varieties, Pip muttered, staring at the 17 different samples of what was essentially cosmic lawn fungus. Really living the dream here. Across the lab, Bort, a grizzled veteran who'd been studying alien life since before Pip was hatched, snorted with amusement. Kid, when I started this job, we got excited about finding bacteria that could survive in a vacuum. You want excitement? Go join the military. Easy for you to say, Pip shot back. You've actually discovered things that weren't already in the textbooks. That's when Fizz, their perpetually nervous technician, practically bounced through the door. Fizz had this habit of getting excited about everything, which would be endearing if it wasn't so exhausting. Guys, you have to see this. Fizz waved a data pad around like it contained the secrets of the universe. The long-range survey picked up something incredible. Klepp materialized behind Fizz with that special talent administrators have for appearing whenever someone sounds happy. Define incredible, Technician Fizz. And please tell me it doesn't require any paperwork modifications. Fizz's excitement was infectious, even if his explanations weren't always coherent. It's a water world. Third planet from a yellow star, absolutely covered in oceans. And get this, it's got life. Complex life. Now that got Pip's attention. Complex life meant actual research opportunities, not just another dissertation on the reproductive habits of vacuum-dwelling space moss. Bort leaned over to squint at the data. Looks pretty standard. Some fish-like creatures, primitive mammals, basic plant life. What's the big deal? The big deal, Fizz said, practically vibrating with enthusiasm, is that it's perfect for a deep-sea probe mission. Standard survey, minimal risk, maximum data collection. It could be the textbook example of aquatic ecosystem development. Klepp's expression immediately shifted to his default state of suspicious caution. Minimal risk, you say? Because the last time someone said minimal risk, we ended up with that incident on Proxima 7 where the probe accidentally started a religious war. That was completely different, Pip interjected. This is just fish and seaweed. What's the worst that could happen? Famous last words, as it turned out. After 3 hours of forms, risk assessments, and Klepp's increasingly creative ways to find problems with the mission, they finally got approval to deploy the X-47 deep-sea probe. Everyone called it Splashy, though Klepp insisted on using its full designation because nicknames were unprofessional. I'll monitor the mission, Pip volunteered, figuring this was finally the chance to make a real contribution to xenobiology. How hard can it be to watch a probe swim around and take pictures? Bort and Fizz exchanged a look that should have been Pip's first warning. Sure, kid, Bort said with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. What could possibly go wrong? 3 weeks later, Pip was beginning to understand why Bort had been smirking. Monitoring a deep-sea probe was about as exciting as watching paint dry in a vacuum. Splashy had made the journey to Earth without incident, which in itself was remarkable given the Council's track record with equipment maintenance. Entering planetary atmosphere, Pip announced to the mostly empty monitoring station. Fizz was there, of course, obsessively checking and rechecking every instrument reading. Bort had wandered off to get coffee, claiming that probe launches were like watching grass grow, but with more paperwork. The entry went smoothly. Too smoothly, really. Pip had expected at least some minor malfunction, a stuck camera, a wonky sensor, maybe a communication glitch. Instead, Splashy slipped into Earth's Pacific Ocean like it had been designed specifically for this mission. Initial readings coming through, Fizz reported, his voice tight with concentration. water temperature, salinity levels, basic chemical composition, all within normal parameters for a standard aquatic environment. Pip leaned back in the monitoring chair and pulled up the visual feed. Schools of fish swam past the probe's cameras, completely ignoring the alien intrusion. Some kelp-like plants swayed in the current. A few larger creatures, probably marine mammals based on their movement patterns, cruised by in the distance. "Riveting," Pip muttered, opening a secondary screen to play some space solitaire. "Really groundbreaking stuff here." That's when Bort returned with his coffee and a stack of preliminary surface scans. "So what have we got? Let me guess, fish, plants, and a bunch of water." "Pretty much," Pip replied without looking up from the card game. "Though according to these surface readings, there's a dominant species that seems to have developed basic technology. Bipedal mammals, mostly hairless, appear to live in large groups near the water but don't seem to go in it much." Bort snorted. "Hairless beach apes who are afraid of swimming. That's evolution for you. Give a species a planet covered in water, and they decide to live on the tiny bits of land instead." Fizz was still glued to his instruments. "Probe depth is now at 500 meters and descending. Sonar is picking up the usual marine life distribution patterns. Nothing unexpected so far." "See?" Pip said, successfully moving a digital card stack. "Minimal risk, maximum boredom. We'll have this survey wrapped up in a week, and I can go back to cataloging varieties of space moss that all look exactly the same." The probe continued its descent, transmitting steady streams of data that all fell well within the parameters for a standard aquatic ecosystem. Fish populations were healthy, plant life was thriving, water chemistry was stable. It was, in every measurable way, exactly what they'd expected to find, which should have been Pip's second warning. At 1,500 meters, Fizz frowned at his readings. "That's odd. Sonar is picking up some unusual geometric patterns on the ocean floor." Pip finally looked up from the card game. "Unusual how?" "Well, they're very regular, almost like structures." Bort moved over to peer at the sonar display. "Probably just rock formations. Water does funny things to stone over geological timescales. Makes everything look artificial when it's really just erosion patterns." "Should I report this to Administrator Klepp?" Fizz asked, his natural nervousness starting to show. "Let's get some visual confirmation first," Pip decided. No point getting Klepp worked up over what's probably just some interesting geology. Famous last words, Part 2. The probe adjusted its descent trajectory toward the geometric anomalies. As they got closer, the sonar readings became more distinct. The patterns weren't just regular, they were complex, interconnected. Almost like. "Namaste." "Are those buildings?" Fizz whispered. Pip's space solitaire game was forgotten. "Fizz, run a full spectrum analysis on those structures." "Bort, can you enhance the visual feed?" "Working on it," Bort muttered, his casual demeanor replaced by professional focus. "But we're still pretty deep. Image resolution is going to be limited until we get closer." As Splashy descended toward what were definitely not natural rock formations, Pip felt the first stirring of unease. Standard survey missions weren't supposed to find ancient ruins. Ancient ruins meant complications, extended research periods, and worst of all, mountains of additional paperwork. "Maybe they're just really old," Pip said hopefully. "Extinct civilization, long dead, purely archaeological interest." The probe's lights illuminated what was clearly a structured environment. Buildings, or at least building-like constructs, stretched out in organized patterns across the ocean floor. But there was something wrong with the scene, something that made Pip's brain itch. "Bort," Pip said slowly, "do those structures look inhabited to you?" Bort was quiet for a long moment, studying the enhanced imagery. "Kid, I've been doing this job for 40 years. I've seen a lot of weird stuff. But this..." That's when they saw the lights moving through the structures. Not random bioluminescence, not reflected probe illumination. Organized, purposeful lights that moved with the unmistakable patterns of intelligent activity. "Oh no," Fizz whispered. "Oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no." Pip felt a sinking sensation that had nothing to do with the probe's continued descent. "Fizz, please tell me those are just some kind of unusual deep-sea creatures." "I wish I could," Fizz replied, his voice climbing toward panic. "But the energy signatures are all wrong for biological sources. Those are artificial lights, Pip. Those are artificial lights in what appears to be an active underwater city." Bort set down his coffee cup with the careful precision of someone trying very hard not to break things. "Well, kid, looks like your boring survey mission just got a lot more interesting. You know that moment when you realize you've stepped in something much deeper than you thought?" Pip was having that moment, except instead of stepping in a puddle, they'd apparently stumbled into an active underwater civilization that had somehow escaped detection by every long-range survey the Council had ever conducted. "Okay," Pip said, trying to maintain some semblance of scientific objectivity, "so we've found evidence of intelligent life. That's not necessarily a problem. Lots of species develop underwater. Remember the cetacean collective from the Andromeda sector?" The cetacean collective, Bort pointed out grimly, never built cities that our sensors couldn't detect from orbit. Fizz was practically hyperventilating over his instruments. "The energy readings are off the charts. These aren't primitive structures. They're using some kind of technology that's not even registering on our standard detection arrays." The probe continued its approach to the underwater city, and with each meter of descent, the readings became more impossible. The buildings weren't just inhabited, they were actively maintained, expanded, and modified in real time. Structures seemed to shift and flow like living things, but the materials were clearly artificial. "Enhance visual on Sector 7, Pip ordered, pointing to an area where the activity seemed particularly intense. What they saw next made Fizz actually fall out of his chair. Swimming through the city streets, yes, streets with what appeared to be traffic patterns, were humans. Not some distant evolutionary cousin or parallel development. Actual recognizable humans moving through the water like they'd been born to it, wearing what looked like casual clothing that somehow wasn't impeding their aquatic movement. "Those are the surface dwellers," Bort said quietly. "The hairless beach apes we were making fun of 20 minutes ago." "But they can't breathe underwater," Pip protested. The surface scans showed them as purely terrestrial. As if to directly contradict this statement, one of the humans in the visual feed paused to have what appeared to be a casual conversation with another human. Underwater, without any visible breathing apparatus. Fizz, who had climbed back into his chair, was staring at his readouts like they'd personally insulted his mother. "Pip, the molecular analysis of their technology, it's not reading as technology at all. It's like they're manipulating matter at the atomic level through, I don't even know what to call it. Will power." "Run the scan again," Pip demanded. "Equipment malfunction." "I've run it 6 times. The results are consistent. They're casually restructuring molecular bonds like it's as natural as breathing." That's when things got really weird. The probe's cameras captured a group of human children, definitely children, based on their size and behavior, playing some kind of game in what appeared to be a park area of the underwater city. The game seemed to involve creating small, glowing spheres that floated between their hands. "Plasma containment," Bort said in a strangled voice. "Those kids are playing catch with contained plasma." "Children don't play with plasma," Pip snapped. "Plasma is a highly dangerous state of matter that requires specialized equipment and extensive safety protocols." One of the children on screen casually tossed their plasma sphere to a friend, who caught it, molded it into a different shape, and threw it back. They were laughing. Fizz made a sound like a deflating balloon. "Pip, I'm detecting pocket dimensional spaces throughout the city. The humans appear to be using them for storage and agriculture. They're farming in folded space-time." "That's impossible." Tell that to them, Bort said, pointing to the screen where several humans were tending to what appeared to be vast agricultural areas that were somehow contained within spaces no larger than a typical room. The probe drifted closer to what seemed to be a residential area, and the audio pickups began intercepting conversations. The universal translator kicked in, and suddenly Pip could understand what the humans were saying. "Did you finish the recalibration on the Pacific thermal regulators?" One human asked another. "Yeah, should keep the weather patterns stable for the next few centuries. Though I think we might need to adjust the Gulf Stream again. The northern ice caps are looking a bit thin." Pip felt something cold settle in their stomach. "Fizz, did that human just say they've been regulating Earth's weather patterns?" "I think so. But that would require planetary scale engineering capabilities that we don't even." The conversation continued. "Speaking of maintenance, the Yellowstone caldera is due for its millennium venting. Want to handle that, or should I?" "I'll take it. You did the last few volcanic adjustments. Fair's fair." Bort was very quietly cursing in 3 different languages. "They're talking about geological engineering like it's household chores." Another group of humans swam past, and their conversation was even more disturbing. "The Council's probe arrived on schedule. Should we make contact?" "Nah, let them think they discovered us naturally. They're not ready for direct communication yet." Pip's voice came out as a croak. "They know we're here." "And they've been expecting us," Fizz added weakly. The probe captured one more conversation that made Pip seriously consider requesting an immediate transfer to the Space Moss Division. "How are the uplift projects going in the other sectors?" "Pretty well. The Regellians are almost ready for faster-than-light communication. The Centaurians should achieve interstellar travel within the next few millennia. We might need to give the vegans another gentle nudge toward quantum mechanics, though." "What about the Council species?" "Oh, they're doing fine. We'll let them keep thinking they're in charge of galactic civilization. It's good for their self-esteem." That's when Pip realized they weren't just watching an advanced underwater civilization. They were watching the beings who had apparently been managing galactic development for who knew how long, while every species in the Council believed they were exploring and advancing on their own. "Fizz," Pip said in a very small voice, "I think we need to call Administrator Klepp." If Pip thought the situation couldn't get any more catastrophically weird, the next few hours of probe data proved them spectacularly wrong. It turned out that discovering humanity was secretly managing galactic civilization was just the appetizer. The main course was finding out exactly how long they'd been doing it. "Administrator Klepp is not going to believe this," Fizz muttered, frantically trying to organize the incoming data into something resembling a coherent report. "I don't believe this," Bort said, studying the translation logs from intercepted human communications. "According to these conversations, they've been aware of every species in the Council for millennia. Not just aware, they've been actively guiding our development." Pip was beginning to understand why Space Moss cataloging was considered a safe career choice. Define guiding. Bort pulled up a particularly damning conversation transcript. Listen to this. Quote, "The Altarians are ready for their next technological breakthrough. Drop the quantum computing principles near their research facilities. Make it look like a natural discovery." End quote. "Oh, that's nothing," Fizz said, his voice climbing toward hysteria. "I found communication logs discussing what they call the Gentle Nudge program. They've been strategically placing technological innovations throughout the galaxy for the past 50,000 years. The probe had somehow managed to tap into what appeared to be humanity's local communication network, and the contents were systematically destroying everything Pip thought they knew about galactic history. The warp drive breakthrough that revolutionized interstellar travel? Human design, deliberately left where the Procyon would find it, Fizz read from his datapad. The universal translator protocols that allowed interspecies communication? Human invention. anonymously shared through 17 different intermediary species to make it look like collaborative development. Pip felt like the universe was playing an elaborate practical joke. What about the Galactic Council itself? Surely we established that independently. Bort was already pulling up another file. The founding principles of the Galactic Council were apparently based on a document the humans titled Basic Planetary Interaction Guidelines for Developing Species. They've been subtly encouraging the formation of galactic government for the past 10,000 years. This has to be some kind of mistake, Pip said desperately. Maybe the translation protocols are malfunctioning. Maybe we're misinterpreting the data. That's when the probe intercepted a conversation that removed any possibility of misinterpretation. "How's the Council doing these days?" one human asked another. "Oh, they're adorable. They just passed a resolution about standardizing trade protocols that we suggested through back channels about 50 years ago. They think they came up with it themselves." "That's sweet. What about the military situations? Any conflicts we need to manage?" "The Regelian-Altarian border dispute is heating up again. I'll arrange for some accidental technological failures on both sides until they calm down and negotiate." "Good thinking. We don't want them actually hurting each other. They're still learning." Fizz made a sound like a dying computer. "They're talking about galactic superpowers like they're children having a playground argument." The revelations kept coming. The probe's enhanced sensors detected vast networks of monitoring stations throughout Earth's oceans, all of them focused on tracking activities throughout the galaxy. The humans weren't just casually managing galactic civilization, they had dedicated infrastructure for it. "Look at this," Bort said, highlighting a particularly sophisticated installation. "This facility alone has more computational power than the entire Council's central database, and it appears to be just one of hundreds." Pip discovered something even worse. The probe's picking up archived communications. Historical logs going back, oh no. "Oh no, no, no." "What?" Fizz asked, though his expression suggested he really didn't want to know. "The humans have detailed records of every major galactic event for the past 100,000 years. Wars, technological breakthroughs, first contact scenarios, planetary disasters, they've got files on all of it. And according to these logs, they intervened in approximately 97% of them." "Intervened how?" Bort demanded. Pip scrolled through the historical archives with growing horror. Remember the Great War between the Centaurian Empire and the Vegan Federation that ended in that miraculous peace treaty? The one that's studied in every diplomatic academy as an example of natural conflict resolution? The humans orchestrated the entire peace process. They arranged for key military leaders on both sides to have chance encounters with moderate philosophers. They subtly sabotaged weapons shipments to prevent major battles. They even arranged the coincidental discovery of those shared archaeological sites that proved both species had common ancestors. Fizz was rocking back and forth in his chair. So the entire foundation of modern galactic diplomacy is based on human manipulation? Not manipulation, Pip corrected miserably. Oh, management. They're managing us. That's when they intercepted the conversation that broke what was left of Pip's worldview. The Council's xenobiology department just sent a probe to Earth. One human reported to what appeared to be a larger group. "Oh, that's wonderful. Which species?" "Next team. They seem like good kids, curious, dedicated, trying to do legitimate scientific research." "Should we reveal ourselves?" "Not yet. They're not psychologically ready for the truth. But we should probably start the gradual disclosure process. Maybe arrange for them to discover some of our less advanced facilities first?" "Good idea. We don't want to cause a complete existential crisis. Remember what happened to the Andromedans when they found out about the Uplift program?" There was general laughter, as if the complete psychological breakdown of an entire species was a fond memory. What happened to the Andromedans? Pip whispered. Bort was already pulling up historical records. According to Council archives, the Andromedan civilization underwent a period of philosophical revolution about 3,000 years ago. They abandoned their traditional governmental structures and adopted what historians call enlightened fatalism, which means they stopped making major decisions as a species and started waiting for cosmic guidance to direct their actions. Fizz looked up from his instruments with wide, terrified eyes. You don't think the cosmic guidance they were waiting for was human management, Pip finished. The Andromedans figured out the truth and basically gave up responsibility for their own civilization. The implications were staggering. How many species throughout the galaxy had discovered the truth about humanity's role? How many had responded by abandoning their autonomy and becoming willing participants in their own management? And most terrifyingly of all, what was going to happen when Administrator Klepp found out? Administrator Klepp's emergency briefing room had seen many crises over the years, but none quite like this. Pip stood at the front of the room, armed with a data pad full of impossible findings and a growing certainty that their career was about to take a dramatic turn for the worse. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Klepp said, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone trying very hard not to have a complete breakdown. You're telling me that the primitive aquatic species we sent a routine probe to monitor is actually managing galactic civilization? That's a gross oversimplification, Pip replied, but essentially accurate. Around the briefing table, the other council department heads were displaying various stages of denial, panic, and what appeared to be existential crisis. Director Holt from Galactic Communications was staring at the wall like it might provide answers. Administrator Quinn from Interspecies Relations was methodically shredding official documents. The military coordination representative, General Vex, was sitting very still in a way that suggested internal screaming. This is clearly a case of equipment malfunction, declared Chief Science Advisor Nrim. Our probe must have intercepted fictional entertainment broadcasts and mistranslated them as factual communications. Fizz, who had been nervously clutching his instrument readings, finally found his voice. Sir, I ran verification protocols 17 times. The data is accurate. The humans are not only aware of every major galactic civilization, they've been subtly guiding our development for tens of thousands of years. Preposterous, Nrim snapped. No species could maintain that level of coordination without being detected by our surveillance networks. Unless, Bort interjected grimly, they're the ones who helped us design our surveillance networks in the first place. That comment created a moment of silence so profound that Pip could hear the ventilation system cycling. General Vex finally spoke. Are you telling me that every military advancement, every strategic innovation, every tactical breakthrough in galactic history has been suggested by a species we classified as primitive? Not all of them, Pip said, consulting the probe data. According to the intercepted communications, they let us develop about 3% of our innovations independently. Quote, it's important for their self-confidence that they accomplish some things on their own. End quote. Director Holt made a sound like air escaping from a damaged hull. 3%. 3% of galactic technological advancement is actually ours. The good news, Pip continued with desperate optimism, is that they seem genuinely benevolent. All evidence suggests they've been preventing wars, managing resource distribution, and guiding species toward peaceful coexistence. The good news? Administrator Klepp's voice cracked slightly. The good news is that we're cosmic pets being managed by our supposed inferiors? That's when Fizz made everything infinitely worse by consulting his latest data downloads. Actually, sir, there's more. The probe intercepted a communication suggesting that the humans have been monitoring this briefing. The room fell completely silent. Monitoring how? Klepp asked in a strangled whisper. Well, they seem to have access to all council communication networks. They're apparently aware of our discovery and are currently debating whether to make direct contact or continue the gradual disclosure process. General Vex stood up abruptly. This meeting is classified at the highest possible security level. No one speaks of this outside this room. We need time to process the implications before. Before what? Pip interrupted. Before we figure out how to tell every species in the galaxy that their entire civilization has been a carefully managed educational experience. We don't tell them, Klepp said firmly. We can't tell them. The psychological impact would be devastating. Look what happened to the Andromedans. Administrator Quen stopped shredding documents long enough to speak. What about the scientific implications? This discovery could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies development. What understanding? Bort asked bitterly. Everything we thought we knew about interspecies development is apparently wrong. We haven't been developing, we've been following a curriculum designed by cosmic babysitters. Chief Science Advisor Nrim was still clinging to denial. I refuse to accept that our greatest achievements are the result of external guidance. The mathematical breakthroughs, the philosophical advances, the artistic innovations, surely those came from genuine inspiration. Fizz consulted his datapad again. According to the Human Communications, they've been particularly careful not to interfere with art and philosophy. They wanted us to develop our own cultural identity. Mathematics. Though apparently they've been leaving strategically placed equations in various locations for the past 20,000 years. Sealed, Klepp announced abruptly. All data from this mission is sealed under emergency protocols. The probe records all analysis, this entire briefing classified indefinitely. Sir, Pip protested, shouldn't we at least consider? Consider what? Consider announcing to the galaxy that every species in the Council is essentially a pet project. Consider explaining that our greatest achievements are homework assignments from beings we've been condescending toward. General Vex nodded grimly. The administrator is right. This information could destabilize every government, every institution, every belief system in known space. And what about the humans? Pip asked. They know we know. What happens when they decide we're ready for the truth? Klepp's expression grew even more haggard. Then we'll deal with that situation when it arises. Until then, this information stays buried. The meeting concluded with assignments that felt distinctly like punishments. Pip, Bort, and Fizz were to be transferred to remote monitoring stations in the Outer Rim territories, ostensibly to conduct important observational research on empty space. As they filed out of the briefing room, Pip couldn't shake the feeling that their cosmic babysitters were probably watching this entire debacle with the fond exasperation of parents whose children had just discovered where babies come from. The cover-up was in motion, but Pip suspected it was already too late. The universe had just gotten a lot more complicated, and no amount of classified stamps was going to make it simple again. 6 months later, Pip was discovering that exile to the Outer Rim territories was not nearly as punitive as Administrator Klepp had intended. Remote Monitoring Station Zeta 7 was arguably the cushiest assignment in the entire Council fleet. Excellent food synthesizers, top-tier entertainment systems were, and absolutely nothing dangerous within several light years. You know, Pip said, leaning back in their observation chair while watching the most boring patch of empty space in the galaxy, for a punishment assignment. This really isn't terrible. Fizz, who had been assigned to the neighboring station, crackled through the comm system. My station has a full recreational holodeck and what appears to be a gourmet meal preparation system. Also, my supply shipments keep arriving ahead of schedule with extra luxury items. Same here, Bort's voice came through from his station. Got a case of Altarian whiskey yesterday that wasn't on my requisition list. Delivery manifest said it was from anonymous well-wishers. Pip was beginning to suspect that their punishment assignments had been arranged by parties unknown. The Outer Rim monitoring stations were supposed to be hardship postings, minimal amenities, basic supplies, months of isolation monitoring cosmic background radiation. Instead, they'd been given what amounted to luxury research retreats. "Hey Fizz," Pip called over the comm. "Run a scan on your supply shipment manifests. Check the routing codes." There was a pause, followed by the sound of Fizz frantically typing. "That's weird. All my supply runs are being routed through Earth's solar system. There's a notation here about ensuring adequate recreational provisions for dedicated researchers." "Mine too," Bort confirmed. "Even got a note in my last shipment saying the fishing equipment was for proper stress management and included detailed instructions for something called fly fishing." Pip stared out at the stars with growing realization. They're still taking care of us. That's when Fizz's voice took on that familiar note of barely controlled panic. "Guys, I'm receiving an unauthorized communication on a frequency that shouldn't exist. It's from Earth." "Put it through," Pip said, feeling resigned to whatever impossible thing was about to happen next. The message was brief, transmitted in perfect galactic standard, and signed with a simple "Your friends from the blue planet." "Dear Pip, Bort, and Fizz," the message began, "we wanted to thank you for trying to do the right thing during the recent revelations regarding our role in galactic affairs. We know it wasn't easy to advocate for honesty in the face of institutional resistance." Pip felt something warm and complicated settle in their chest. The message continued. "We hope you're enjoying your new assignments. We took the liberty of ensuring you'd be comfortable while the Council works through its adjustment period. Consider it a small token of appreciation for your scientific integrity." "Adjustment period?" Bort muttered. "Is that what we're calling the complete recontextualization of galactic civilization?" "We understand this situation is unprecedented," the message went on, "and we respect the Council's decision to process this information gradually. Change is difficult, and we've learned that forcing rapid adaptation rarely produces positive outcomes." Fizz made a sound that might have been laughter or hysteria. "They're managing our reaction to discovering they're managing us." In the meantime, the message concluded, "Please know that your efforts to promote truth and scientific discovery have not gone unnoticed. The galaxy needs researchers who value honesty over convenience, and we're grateful to have met you." The message ended with what appeared to be a hand-drawn image of a smiling face and the words, "Keep up the good work." Pip sat in silence for a long moment, staring at the cheerful alien human smiley face on their communication display. "So," Bort finally said, "are we okay with this?" "With what exactly?" Pip asked. "With discovering that humanity has been gently shepherding galactic civilization for millennia? With finding out that most of our greatest achievements were carefully orchestrated learning experiences? With learning that we're essentially cosmic kindergartners being supervised by benevolent teacher parents?" "Yeah, that." "In?" Pip considered the question seriously. The alternative to human guidance wasn't independence, it was the chaos, warfare, and mutual destruction that had apparently been prevented by subtle intervention for thousands of years. The humans weren't controlling galactic civilization so much as managing it. Like parents who let their children make their own mistakes while quietly preventing them from doing anything truly catastrophic. "You know what?" Pip said finally. "I think I'm okay with it. They seem to genuinely care about our well-being. They're letting us develop at our own pace, and they're apparently excellent at preventing wars. As cosmic babysitters go, we could do a lot worse." Plus, Fizz added pragmatically, "They sent me genuine Earth chocolate in my last supply drop. If you're going to be managed by advanced beings, might as well be ones with excellent taste in confections." Bort's laughter echoed through the comm system. "Here's to humanity, then. The most competent babysitters in the galaxy." Pip raised a cup of the mysteriously excellent coffee that had appeared in their latest supply drop. "To humanity. May they continue to let us think we're in charge while quietly making sure we don't blow ourselves up." As they sat in their comfortable exile, watching the peaceful emptiness of space, Pip couldn't help but smile. The universe was vast, complex, and apparently much more carefully managed than anyone had imagined. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing after all. Somewhere in Earth's oceans, Pip suspected, their cosmic babysitters were probably having a good laugh about the whole situation. And honestly, that was okay too.